Catherine Feeney with you, filling in for Kelly Higgins Divine. We are about to start to get organised on this program. Lord knows I need a little help in that department. Bonnie Black, our organisational expert, is about to join you in the studio, offering you some tips and advice, some guidance if you need a little help whipping your place into shape. If you're in the midst of a spring clean, what a time to do it. We're having a particular look at kitchens in the next couple of minutes. So if you've got a kitchen-related organisational question or just a plea for help in general, 1300 222 612 to speak with Bonnie Black, or you can shoot me through a text message, 0467 922 612. It's about 35 minutes past 2 in the afternoon. Lovely to have your company.
Hi, Yumi Steins here, host of the new ABC podcast, Ladies, We Need to Talk, a podcast for women, by women, and we need to talk about mental load.
A lot of the routine tasks tend to be done by women. These are things that require immediate attention.
Sorting out work, dinner, the plumber, your partner. It's exhausting.
You just got to let some things go. I was finding it was impacting my sanity.
Ladies, we need to talk. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or hear it now on the new ABC Listen app.
This is ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland.
You know, when you open that cupboard in your kitchen and instead of pulling out the lasagna tray, it's a bit like... Oh dear. That's kind of like an audio representation of my kitchen. And I'm slightly ashamed to admit it. How about you? How are things at your place? 1300 222 612. Now's your chance to get organised because Little Miss Organised herself, Bonnie Black, is in the studio. G'day, Bonnie.
G'day, Kat. How are you?
I'm all right. And you know what? I visit shops that specialise in storage, in selling organisational stuff in the vain hope of trying to do something. And I buy this stuff and months go by and I'm back at square one. My kitchen is a mess again. Where do I begin? How can I organise my kitchen properly?
The first step is definitely not to go out and buy storage. And a lot of people think that in any room of the house, if they're having issues, I'll go and buy some storage. But that tends to just exacerbate the problem because it's a new place for us to put stuff. So the first thing is to actually do an assessment, do a cull, declutter, and then organise what you want to keep, and then buy storage solutions if you need to after that.
You know, that is sound advice. My passing excuse is, well, it's because I've got a galley kitchen and it's so small. And so we need a bigger house, babes.
Yeah.
Probably I just need to work better with the space that I have allocated, which probably is perfectly adequate.
Yeah.
So begin with an audit. How can I tell what is an essential item? I mean, this is the thing. We're talking about kitchens. I cook from time to time. Sometimes I bake. So I've got all these accoutrements that go along with that I'm not using regularly.
Yeah,
Should
absolutely.
I hang on to them, or at what point do I turf them?
It's a really difficult question, and people can get emotionally attached to stuff in their kitchen, which is kind of funny. But sometimes I think the stuff we keep in our kitchen can represent that ideal Betty Crocker sort of situation. You know, we saw people growing up, maybe our mothers or our aunties or our grandmothers, who were these amazing people in the kitchen. And so we want to be like that. And so we think, I might one day do my kids' cake and do all the decorating, so I'm going to keep all the cake decorating stuff, and I'm going to keep 50 million types of tins for baking cookies, even though I've never baked anything in my life. So I think a good question to ask yourself is, have you used it in the last year or two? Are you likely to use it in the next 6 months? If the answer is no, but you still feel like you should keep it, you have to have a really hard look at yourself. Why do I feel attached to this item?
Yeah, okay. Something more profound might be at play than whether or not you actually need the sifter for the icing sugar for the cake that you haven't ever made.
That's right.
Right. The other thing that drives me to absolute distraction, but is, I suppose, an essential item to a degree, is the containers, the plastic containers, glass or otherwise, that are used for food storage.
Yes.
And when they're not storing food, they are taking up a fair chunk of space. I've tried doing one basket for the lids and then one basket for the containers, so I can stack the containers, and then I can never find the lid to match the container. What's your tip?
Well, I have to admit I do like having the containers and the lids separated, because it does make it easier to make sure that the lids aren't falling over all over the place. And, it's hard to stack when you're trying to do the lids underneath and that kind of thing. But what's also important is to make sure that if you've got circular containers, that you have those separate from your rectangular and your square containers, because that can get confusing, especially with lids. And making sure that you do that audit and pull out all your Tupperware and your plastics and all your Pyrex type dishes, and actually working out, oh, this doesn't have a lid, can I get rid of this dish now, rather than keeping things that I'm sure it's got a lid here somewhere.
I just can't see that far back in the nightmare that is my pantry, my storage area. 1300 222 612 if you've got a kitchen in crisis that you would like to organise. Bonnie Black from littlemissorganised.com.au is in the studio now, ready to take your calls. Mary from Northgate, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, your question isn't specifically about kitchens, and that's all right. You're about to move house.
Yes.
What's your question for Bonnie?
Well, I could definitely do kitchens, but I
Okay.
do the critical picture,
Okay.
which is I'm about to move house, and like when you move into a new house, everything looks nice and neat. And I wondered if there's, I don't know, I vaguely remember when, I don't know whether my mother did it, but when people used to do stuff to a routine. So Monday they did the washing, and Tuesday they did the, I don't know, whatever you do on Tuesdays, and then, that sort of thing. And I just wondered if that's about it, really.
To help keep that new house.
How much of a plan I have.
Right.
But I'd like to have it maybe stay a little bit like it's going to look when I arrive, instead of the one I'm currently in.
That's a really good question, Mary. And I think the most important thing that people tend to forget with moving is that they need to actually declutter and get rid of the things that they no longer use before they move. Because a lot of people, moving is very stressful, and so they just pack it all up in a box and think, oh, I'll deal with it at the other end. So the most important...
That's what I decided.
Yeah. So that actually creates an issue for you at the other end. It's not actually getting rid of the problem, it's just taking it with you. And of course you're paying for it because you're transporting it with a moving company, or paying for petrol or whatever it is. So do your declutter before you move, and then once you actually move in and you set things up perfectly how you want them, spend that time, make sure that you've got the time to actually set things up properly, and then put in place that sort of routine if you would like, because once you've actually set the foundations right, then the maintenance becomes really easy. It's when we've set foundations that are a bit wonky that maintaining becomes tricky, and we end up in a bit of a clutter.
When do you actually move in, Mary?
Oh, well, I have a tiny little bit of flexibility about that, but I have an awful lot of stuff. I think I heard the tail end of the one before about, do I really want to keep the icing machine that my sister gave me that I'm never going to use?
My bread machine, my other machine.
That sort of stuff. I probably have a fair bit of that, that perhaps just in case maybe one day, rather than the fact that actually I don't bake, so I'm probably never going to start.
Yeah. It's good that you are taking the time out, Mary, though, to plan ahead, because planning is usually key. Thanks for the call, Mary. Good luck with the move. 1300 222 612 if you've got a question about getting organised for Bonnie Black. Yeah, Mary makes a good point, doesn't she, about, we're talking about kitchens, specifically organisation in general, that we do accrue all sorts of appliances, and that can usually cut down on the space that we have available in our kitchens really quickly. What do you think? Do you box them up and put them in the garage, and then if they don't come out of the garage, then you get rid of them? I mean, sometimes they can be quite expensive, so you don't want to part with them
Yeah, and appliances
hastily.
can be really hard because sometimes they've been a gift from, the mother-in-law who thought that you might like a pie maker or a slushy maker or something like that. I tend to think that if you box stuff up and you stick it in the garage, it's just going to sit there for 5 years, 10 years until you can be bothered, throwing it out. So I think it's a bit of a delayed decision by just storing it somewhere. I think people just need to bite the bullet and say, you know what? I've not used it. I'm not going to use it. It doesn't matter that it cost me or somebody else money. The purpose of this machine was to be used as a bread maker. Let's donate it somewhere where someone can actually make bread with it.
Okay, let's talk now about designing a kitchen, because for some people they have the luxury of being able to pick whether they have the cupboard here, the drawer there, the island here. What's your advice? What makes it easier to keep a kitchen clean, tidy and organised? Cupboards, drawers, Bonnie Black?
Drawers all the way. So I actually...
Applause for drawers!
Oh, yes, absolutely. I actually got to design my own kitchen about 3 years ago, which was so exciting because I could put this all into practice. And we have a big 2x2 metre island bench, and I've got drawers down one side and then kind of hidden cupboards around the other sides, because it's actually our dining table as well. So we can fit 6 people around it, and then we've got these 2 massive hidden cupboards for all those entertaining type platters and things like that we don't use every day. But the drawers are definitely my favourite because they're just so easy and everything's accessible. You can pull it out and see what's in there. Drawers are just the way to go.
Okay, so pick the drawers. And what other handy considerations might you suggest people take into account if they are designing their own kitchen?
I think if you can afford to spend the money, get things like the soft close drawers and get those special corner cupboards, because everyone has to have a corner cupboard really, like unless you've got a really nice long galley style kitchen like you do.
It's not nice and long, it's pretty pokey. But thanks for putting a positive spin on it, Bonnie. Appreciate it.
Silver lining there. If you have to have a corner cupboard, make sure you get those rotating inners so that you can actually pull everything out and utilize them properly. If you have any special considerations, like you want wine racks or tea towels that pop, tea towel holders that pop out, or a bin that goes on the top of your bench, or a pop-up PowerPoint. These are all the sort of things that people should consider when they're designing their own kitchen, because you want functionality over anything else. As much as a kitchen is going to be beautiful to look at and that's what you want, if it's not functional, it will really annoy you.
Yeah, it'll put the funk in funky and not in a good way. Not a word you want applied to your kitchen. Bonnie Black is from littlemissorganised.com.au. She is our organisational expert. Bonnie Black, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Kat.
Thank you. And if you would like to find out more about how you can get organised, just head to Bonnie's website, littlemissorganised.com.au.